Let's hit it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about. Commit to change. We will.
Well, welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you are with us here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I hope you enjoyed our opening music called Clarion Call by the Mark Arneson Band, featuring My Adore. You can download that song on any of your favorite music platforms. For those of you that are new to Alzheimer Speaks Radio, we're about sound news, not just sound bites. We like to have real conversations with people in the trenches making a difference. And our goal is to raise all voices, big and small. And to our listeners, I have to thank you. Your likes, your clicks, and shares have spread our brand and our content all around the world. So you are changing lives, and we really appreciate you being part of our community. Today, we're going to be talking about Dementia Task Force and all different types of things that one particular community is taking to heart and is making a big difference for their residents. So I'm really, really interested to have that conversation with them. Some of our upcoming shows on Thursday, we're going to be talking with Chris Brinkler, who is the CEO of Mind VR, and that's Mind, MYND, and the virtual program that they have designed for people with dementia and seniors. It's pretty fascinating to see what they're doing. I also want to give a shout out to Artist Senior Living of Woodbury, Minnesota, and also Arthur's Memory Cafe. Both are doing memory cafes, and you can find more information about those by just contacting me through alzheimerspeaks.com. Coral Health is still being so kind in giving out their free app for Music First and Choral Faith. So just go to Choral, CORO, health.com, and you can download those free. And if you haven't heard, we launched Dementia Map, which I'm so excited about, which is a global resource directory that has over 150 categories. We have free plans for those who have resources, as well as paid ones if people want to get a little bit more exposure. And we don't ask for any contact information from the user. We don't want you to feel like you're being trapped or you're going to be hounded after the fact. So check out dementiamap.com. So let's go ahead and get started with our conversation today. I am thrilled to have these ladies back again with us. I'm going to first introduce Linda Healy, and she is a certified gerontological and palliative care nurse practitioner, and she has worked with MPTF, which is the Motion Picture and Television Fund, for the last 20 years, and she is the director of both the geriatric services and palliative care. So welcome, Linda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's really good to have us to be able to talk with you again, Lori. Thanks for having us back.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. And next I want to introduce Jessica Coy. She is a licensed clinical social worker, and she has worked with MPTF communities and their clients and residents with dementia for the last 13 years. And she is the director of campus and community-based social services. So welcome, Jessica. How are you doing?
I'm terrific, Lori. Thanks.
Well, I'm excited, again, to have you both back, but I'm going to ask each of you, because I always ask this question just so our audience has a base, if you have been touched personally by dementia in your own family or circle of friends. So, Jessica, do you want to go first?
Sure.
So within my family and circle of friends, I have not been touched by dementia, but I have obviously worked with people who have dementia through my profession, as well as families in the community who are dealing with loved ones with dementia.
Great. Thank you. And Linda, how about you?
Within my circle of friends, yes, I've had friends that have had parents that have experienced dementia, and then help support my friends as they navigate their parents' lives. Within my own family, not at this time. I haven't had anybody, but personally, professionally, it's yes, absolutely. For the last 20 years here at Motion Picture, been working quite a bit with dementia.
Great. Now, I want to ask you about a task force, a dementia task force that you guys started. And I'm kind of fascinated at that because I don't hear too many communities that actually get involved. Usually the task force are, within a dementia-friendly community at large, a city or county or even state force. So who would like to start out kind of telling us about why you started it and how you structured it?
Linda, you should go.
Yeah, so this actually started out in 2012, and it started out with the CMS mandate for nursing homes to reduce their antipsychotic prescribing by 30% within a certain period of time. And so this began as the antipsychotic task force, which was really pulling together, looking at if we were going to reduce antipsychotic use, that we really needed to have an alternative. And the alternative couldn't just be hopping to another medication. We really realized that, we've got to get more creative about how we're addressing the distress and the behaviors of unrest that can occur in somebody with dementia. And so it was bringing together nursing and social services and pharmacy along with the prescribers to be able to sit at a table and talk about, okay, what are we going to do? How do we change the culture of how we give care? It was about the individual resident, but it was also the broader picture of how do we actually just change what our MO is in taking care of things. And so that's where it actually began. And then as time went by and we did make the reductions that we wanted to and made a shift away from pharmaceutical interventions, more, as being a first line choice. They really became the last straw. We realized that antipsychotic task force really wasn't, meeting the needs. And it was a dementia task force. It was trying to make sure that our care of our residents, the people that are entrusted to us, gave them the best quality of life and the richest quality of life that we could. And so members from activities, more members from the frontline nursing staff were added. The employee education nurse was added to the task force because we were really trying to look at that broader picture of across the campus, how do we make our community as dementia friendly as possible and be able to, again, make sure that people are embraced and supported at whatever level they are in their cognition.
Well, that's nice. Jessica, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, and we'll probably get into this more, but, the dementia task force, is Linda's baby. I think, she was the one that really saw, the need for something like this. And out of it grew many creative ideas. And we can talk about that in a little while, but because we had such an interdisciplinary team that came to the table, each piece of that team then came up with ideas that could, target and work with our residents who have dementia in such specialized ways. And so the Dementia Task Force grew into a very, I think, unique programming, for lack of a better word.
Well, what I like about it is you took something that was a mandate, from CMS, and you did more than what they asked. You looked deeper. You didn't just like, okay, we pulled this together. We've looked at the antipsychotic, boom, we're done. You really looked deeper into the individuals and said, hey, this can transcend everything that we're doing and how we're doing it, and just really that whole culture change. of how you interact and how you engage. And I think that that's so important. I would love to see more communities take that stance. You know, a lot of communities say that they specialize in dementia care, but they don't always go into the whys and the hows of what they do. And they might be doing it, but they don't always share it with the public or with families, which I think is really critical. You know, from, you know, picking out your dishes, you know, that's being served with food, or the type of chairs and furniture that you use, you know, all of those things can come into play. And then you add in, you know, the activities and the actual engagement pieces. Those are all really, really important things for families to understand, that it doesn't just look pretty. You know, it looks this way for a reason. We do this for a reason. And I think sometimes that educational piece is undervalued. And it's done, but it's not always communicated as to why. And it can have a huge impact when others are trying to do the same thing. But if they don't know the whys behind it, you know, it kind of get pushed to the side, you know, say, well, you know, try something else. So kudos to you guys. You have also been really doing a lot of dementia training programs for staff and for volunteers. So I'd love to hear what types of programs you do have. And probably, I'm guessing you've had to adjust with COVID on how do you make all of that happen. So who would like to take that question?
I can start, and then Linda, if you want to chime in.
Okay.
So again, really, I think out of this dementia task force, we saw that there was, you know, the need for education. There can be kind of this body of folks that are really interested in dementia and how do we meet the needs of our residents who have dementia. But if we don't sort of permeate through the rest of staff and families and volunteers, then, you know, it kind of only stays within a small group of people. So together, Linda and I, with the education department, another nurse practitioner that works with us, Darlene Salas, the head of volunteers, we got together and we've put on a number of different trainings across campus, starting with the basics of what is dementia. How do you work with residents who exhibit behaviors due to dementia? We had a training where we actually got a virtual reality, I don't even know what you call it, but a virtual reality program that allowed the person to experience what it was like during the different phases of dementia, so mild, moderate, and then severe. And so we would have the individual wear the virtual reality, and then we would have kind of a discussion afterwards. We've also done training where we watch different videos about people who have experienced dementia or families who've experienced dementia and have discussions around that. And it's been across campus. So not just nursing staff, but dietary staff, housekeeping staff, volunteers who come in and work with our residents. And we've done it for, a couple of years now, I would say, Linda, I don't even know offhand.
We've also included all managers from all departments, even, you know, going into the finance part of the finance department and the marketing department, because we realized that anybody coming to campus to work here in some way encounters dementia, or their work supports the care of people with dementia. And so we wanted to make sure, even if they were one step removed, that they had some understanding of what the people that are in our care, you know, what they're experiencing and what they need.
Well, you know, I love that you said that, because so many times people go, well, you know, janitor doesn't work with them, housekeeping doesn't work with them. They're in contact with people with dementia a ton and have conversations and assist. And so sometimes just because a job title, you think this is what their tasks are, they're there to support the whole community.
Right.
And, you know, if they're walking down the hall, this is going to happen. And so that's a really smart, healthy approach to get everybody to understand why they're there, you know, in the first place. And I also think that everything that is taught through dementia can be applied in other areas of life. and kind of open your eyes of, well, maybe I should try this approach with my teenager or whatever it might be, or my toddler, or my spouse, because it really is about amplifying good communication skills, being more present, picking up on things that sometimes we would just kind of blow off as non-important. And I also think it's good for those staff to feel part of the team, that they can make a difference as well. I know with some companies I've worked with, they actually have carved out time, like even if it's 15 minutes a week, where everybody has to do a one-on-one with a resident at all levels, just to make sure that they're in sync with why they're there and who they serve, and just added that comfort level, that humanness. How have you had to adjust with COVID, with training at this point?
Well, the classroom training, clearly we can't bring people together in a class. So we have been able to incorporate some virtual experiences for people. But we've been able to continue with the huddles that we do on a weekly basis. And that started again from the Dementia Task Force, was coming together with the staff, the frontline staff that was caring for our residents. And each week, and just saying, okay, which resident is, making you concerned this week, that you're concerned for them, or you're noticing that you're having more difficulties in their care because they're not responding the way they used to, and that kind of thing. And then letting the staff brainstorm. Jessica and I would be there to help facilitate that, but brainstorm on what else could they try? What approach are they trying that's not working? And what other approaches might they try? What other ways how can we adjust their care plan to meet that resident's need? And we've been able to continue doing that with staff, is to be able to kind of do these very small groups, spaced apart, everybody wearing their PPE, but going through and just talking about, which residents need to be discussed that week. And it was also a way of trying to team build for the staff themselves. Like, you have resources in the people right around you. You may be having troubles with Betty, but maybe, your partner over here has figured out a way that works for Betty, and it's just getting them to talk to each other and brainstorm and realize that collectively they've got a lot of knowledge, amongst them.
Again, I love that approach. I love even just calling it a huddle versus a staff meeting, because it makes it feel part of a team and not so cold, but really, again, kind of humanizes it. And I think it is really important for staff to understand how much they know. And that they can really help somebody else out in a situation. And I think, kind of lighting that fire to that spark of creativity is, to me, makes the difference of, will a team work together and or not? A lot of communities out there, they don't allow staff the freedom to try new things. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're going to do it. They either fit the criteria or they don't. And then poof, they're out. But when you allow that creativity, I think employees feel more purposeful. I think they feel more appreciated. It allows them to get kudos when something works. And it also allows them, when something fails, to be supported by the team. Hey, we tried, let's try something else. It's any great investor or entrepreneur out there will say they've failed way more than they've made the right choices the first time. And so it's just a matter of lifting one another, because we've all been in that place where, we've done something and it hasn't worked out the way we've wanted it to. And then other times it has, and we know how both of those feel, but we need to get to that point of, how do we make it work? And, the more times we fail, the closer we get to that point. So I think that's a really healthy environment that you have there. Jessica, anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think another thing that we've tried to do, during the pandemic, especially with our volunteers, is we do have family visits that take place where our volunteers actually come and oversee the visits. And I've done some Zooms with the volunteers as a group, just sort of talking with them about just different scenarios that have come up during those family visits. And in particular, it has been, some of our residents who have dementia, because it's obviously a confusing time for all of us. And then add, kind of having to go out of their environment. We have the visits outside of their unit of where they live. And so there have been some instances of, people getting up and wanting to wander away. So I've availed myself to the volunteers just to talk and provide support to them. And that's been one way over Zoom that we've done that. And then the social workers continue to have their caregiver groups for our family members virtually. So those are happening over Zoom. And in our community outside of our dementia area over in our RCFE, education continues again virtually. So sending links to people to watch training and then gathering them in small groups to talk about those trainings. So education, we see it as super important and critical. I think it's part of how we get staff to buy in and feel included and important. And so we've tried as best we can to have the education continue.
Wonderful.
Not perfect, but.
Well, life's not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's, I think one thing that dementia teaches us, if we allow it to, that life wasn't perfect before and it's not going to be with dementia. So, stop having these high expectations, and learn to kind of go with the flow a little bit more. Well, that's great news. One of the things, and I don't know if you guys have memory cafes or not, which are, support groups for people with dementia, typically in early to mid stages, and their care partners. But I was talking with Cindy Lazinski, who has a dementia-friendly community in Colorado, and she shared with me one of their Zoom memory cafes that they're doing. But what they're doing is a little bit different, because a lot of communities might have a support group for their residents, but it's just the residents alone, and they've invited families in. And so not just necessarily a spouse, but their children and grandchildren. And I got to see this one clip where, they were doing a music activity during this meeting. And, the husband just got teary-eyed with a huge smile on his face, seeing his wife engaged. Same with the daughter and the granddaughters. I mean, it was just like, being able to share those things through Zoom is just unbelievable. And such a great value to families themselves. I'd like to talk about some of the activities that you're doing to keep your residents busy and engaged and kind of normalize things, especially during COVID, because, here in some of our communities in memory care, they handle it all different in Minnesota. Some of them have locked everything down and people are really stuck in their room. They're not to wander in the hall. They've pulled furniture out of lounges and the whole 9 yards. And then others are saying, we're set up for smaller communities and we're going to let people still roam and, and partake, because people with dementia don't understand a lockdown, or being quarantined, all of those types of things, and using safety precautions to still allow them to engage. So what types of things have you been doing? And if you can give us some maybe examples, and I'll go to Jessica first on this one, of types of activities that you use for engagement.
Yeah, so I think we've been trying to sort of find the happy medium, right? So recognizing that people who have dementia aren't going to understand kind of what's going on, and trying to sort of keep some normalcy to their lives as best we can, but as safely as we can. And so I know our recreation department has been doing a lot of kind of individualized activities, very small group activities. So for instance, I was up there, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if it was like 50s day or something, and the staff were dressed up in different costumes, and they had a cart going around where it was playing music, staff were dancing, and then they kind of congregated safely with some residents very spaced out and had kind of a small dance party, and we're handing out refreshments, and so that was kind of fun to watch. We have an internal television station here on campus, where residents can tune into to watch different programming throughout the day. So there's like stories that take place or game shows that take place. And so that's been a way to engage some of our residents who are able to kind of sit and watch those shows. And those can be interactive as well. Linda, I don't know. We've been doing FaceTime. That's another thing that we try to do with our residents, is engaging them over FaceTime or Zoom with their families who obviously aren't here, and allowing them to visit with them virtually.
Okay.
I think we've also just avoided the everybody has to stay in their room philosophy. Does not work well for somebody with dementia. And so our setting that are more impaired residents, the people who require a secured setting, which is Harry's Haven, that's was designed to be a very interactive environment in and of itself without it needing to have a staff person facilitate something. So there's a workshop where there's wood figures to paint and PVC pipes to put together and that kind of thing. There's the laundry room where there's socks, little children's socks to be sorted and towels to be folded and whatever else. It just sits there, and if somebody can engage with that. There's the grocery store, which has basically very as non-perishable as possible, boxes of food and things like that somebody, if they feel like they want to pick something out for their dinner, they can. And then there's the office that has a typewriter and filing and things. And so all of that environment we've kept accessible. We try to keep an eye on as best as possible, not have two residents side by side, but frankly, where the residents are getting tested regularly, we're monitoring for symptoms, and you can't totally take away people's ability to have social engagement. So within reason, we try to keep people a little bit spaced apart, but it's not going to be a, no, you can't do that, you need to back away type thing. We try not to make it intrusive on how they're trying to live their lives.
Well, and that's nice. I know, I talked with a lot of people, basically all around the world, because I was doing some COVID specials when this first started, and everyone said, oh, everyone's adapting really well. And they were all kind of shocked. And then it hit about 6 weeks to 2 months. And then everybody saw a change. And it's like, did that change really just take place then? Or was everyone else so busy learning about the PPE and all the routine changes, with that? I mean, it's really kind of hard to say, but then, everybody was talking about the depression, the isolation, the loneliness, and, they were seeing an increase of people passing and, with or without the disease itself. And so, that whole right to, socialize has been really, really important, and, gets down to that whole quality of life issue. And, we're seeing that with people, inside a community and outside a community, just in terms of what we're dealing with. I'd like to think those that aren't living, in a dementia community have a little more wherewithal to stay connected and in other fashions, but still be safe. But that's not always the way of the world. I know it's been really difficult on families in terms of the fear of the next lockdown, or I was able to visit, now I can't again. And here in Minnesota, you guys at least have nice weather. Here in Minnesota, it's like 20 below today, so or not below 20 to 30 degrees out with a nice little clip of a windshield. So they really can't do the outside visits so much anymore. And people are really trying to figure out how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep them safe with all that? Now, you guys also, I think, have done some things with like a walking groups, and which I think is a really nice. I mean, everybody needs to move. I should sign up for one of those because my butt sits in front of the computer way too much these days. But I think that's just a really healthy means, and it doesn't have, again, it's not costing you money to do an activity like that. What kind of response have you seen from your residents with that?
Well, the walking group is, and we haven't been doing it as much during COVID. Some of our residents who live in our assisted living do walk. We have a beautiful campus with acres that we're on, so we're pretty lucky in that way. But there was a great response to our walking group. We would have between 6 and 10 of our residents together who would walk throughout campus, and then we would stop at various locations and do kind of some light exercises, sometimes dancing, sometimes kind of mimicking, marching or other sort of fun activities. We bring a ball sometimes and throw that at a nice big kind of beach ball and play that. And so our walking group was actually quite a success, and hopefully it'll continue once this kind of surge and rise of the virus is over. Our unit, which is called Harry's Haven, our dementia unit, is designed to sort of promote walking. Linda had mentioned what we call the neighborhoods with the various activity stations, but the way that it's set up, the environment, is it really allows for kind of almost like a nice walking path that goes around in a circle. And so, the residents can kind of stop at the different activity centers. And so that's a really nice feature of Harry's Haven, our dementia unit. And so that's kind of been what's going on with our walking group.
That's nice. Well, and you guys had the fires to battle too with
yeah.
where you couldn't go outside for those. I mean, it's like you guys have been hit with everything this year. What about, Linda, can you tell me about the mechanical cats that you have?
Oh, yeah, those were the Hasbro mechanical cats. They're called companion cats. Mm-hmm. And I mean, these things they're pretty cool. The cat has sensors on it. And so it's a stuffed cat, maybe about 2 feet long. And it's but with the sensors, and it's got a motor inside, runs on batteries, that it can detect. So if the person holding the cat strokes the side of the cat's face, the cat moves its head into the hand, like it's pushing it to get more attention. If you pet the back a certain way, the cat turns so that its belly is exposed because it wants its tummy rubbed. It'll sit by itself and it'll raise its paw to its mouth like it's cleaning itself. It will eventually, it'll start purring. If you pet it a certain way, and you can not only hear the purr, you can feel the vibration. And it does some other things, but it's something that we found some of our residents it gave a sense of purpose. It wasn't like, here's a stuffed toy. This was the creature they were taking care of. And so they made sure their cat was tucked in with them at bed at night. And then at mealtime, they made sure their cat got some of the meal. So we learned how to clean mechanical cats. Their little mouths and faces got covered with dinner. But it was a sense of they were taking care of somebody, and they are. And so it's something that we found was soothing. It, again, reduced anxiety. It reduced outbursts of being distressed. It was just that the people could kind of they were with their pet, and then people would come by, and we found that staff, we all started talking to the cats like the cat was, oh, how are you today, Bootsy? And it just sort of became, these cats they're part of the fabric of the unit. So we got mechanical dogs too, but I think because the dogs were a little bit more limited in their movement, it was less realistic. Not very many puppies just sit, so cats did better because it could really, a cat curled up on your lap is a kind of a natural thing.
Oh, nice. Well, you think of how many people who have real pets out there, and they become part of your family. It's about unconditional love. It is soothing, and it is loving. So that's neat that they made it that realistic. How about, I think you guys said you did some aromatherapy groups as well. Jessica, do you want to take that one? And
I'll start. This is kind of Linda's baby too, but so yeah, we again we do it individual, and then we were doing it in groups. Obviously, we're not doing it in groups as much these days. But in the group idea, we would gather people. We'd have diffusers going where some sort of scent was in the diffuser, And then one of our recreation staff might go around and, put a scent on maybe a cotton ball or on someone's hand and allow them to sniff it. So if it's lavender, the idea there is that it's soothing. And then do some kind of gentle hand massage with some lavender lotion. And then there's been certain residents, who Linda and others have identified that really respond to the aromatherapy. So they might have a aromatherapy stick that's put up like in the doorway of their room that emits a scent of, again, let's say it's lavender. And then perhaps a diffuser if that's something that we think would work in a residence room. But Linda, you can add to what I've...
Well, we experimented with a lot of different things with aromatherapy. So I think we've hit upon a combination of different delivery methods and when it would be appropriate and for which individuals that I think we're fine tuning its success. It also became a real integral part of a program that we brought onto campus called Urban Zen. And that was a program that actually was developed for use in the hospital type setting, which incorporates specially trained, they're called Urban Zen integrative therapists, but they are specially trained and they're able to deliver aromatherapy, guided breathing, intentional movement that kind of focuses a person on in the moment, and Reiki and things like that and it was brought into hospitals to help like in the pre-op setting. If to get somebody kind of in a good frame of mind and a calm state before going into surgery, and they found that people did much better post-op. So that was just kind of its original intention. We brought it in and were able to use it with our residents with dementia and found that, and this was kind of uncharted territory because it's not really how Urban Zen was initially intended, but the responses that we saw to it were just amazing. We have a therapist that we work with, and that she, is able to find, with each individual resident, it's always a one-on-one experience, and find out which aromatherapy, which essential oil that person is responding to at that time. And then if they're able to, she can take them through some very simple movements of just, open and close your hands in time with your breathing and kind of help them engage with her. They mirror her movements. What I found most fascinating, though, was the residents that are so impaired in their dementia, so progressed in their disease state, that they're not able to follow the instructions to move or to breathe or anything else. And yet her presence with them, the aromatherapy, the gentle Reiki on just like a knee. I saw people that had not made eye contact for months turn their head and look at her and actually connect. And it was such an amazing thing. It was like watching, awakening. And that just that one-on-one attention and connecting with them in a way that wasn't just verbal or whatever. It was using the senses that they had that they could still engage with. And so we're really excited to continue exploring that as a means of therapy and quality of life activity for our residents.
Well, and I think with that, your Urban Zen person is so present, and they're not coming in with all this baggage stuff, which a lot of us do. Maybe we had a bad day at home on our drive to work or something, and we carry that with us. And, that can get mirrored back, our frustration or our sadness or our happiness, whatever it is. But I don't think people really understand that importance of the mirroring concept, that they will reflect back what we are, and how we're acting, and they will pick up if we're disconnected, if we've got the Stepford wife smile on and yet we're really anxious on the inside. They're still picking up on all of that stuff. And I found that totally, totally amazing as well. And I think the ability to learn and to look at things differently. I mean, we all breathe every day, all day long, but we don't really pay attention to how we breathe or how our breathing changes when our moods change, and how deep breathing can make a difference. And, just that calmness. I have to laugh. This is a little off topic, but I took my granddaughters for a walk this weekend, and one of them was riding her scooter. The other one was walking because her bike was put away for winter. And we didn't have any snow, so we went out, and the 5-year-old is doing her scooter, and she would go so far, and then she would stop. And, she learned this at school. She would stop, and she would sit, and she would cross her legs, and she would put her fingers in the O, and she would go, just for a few seconds, and then she'd pop up. She'd get back on her scooter again. And, a little while later, and it was just like, I don't know what called her to do that. But I thought it was beautiful that she even remembered that she was utilizing it. I don't quite understand why, but she was proud, and she was comfortable, and she was happy. And I think, when we look at our residents, again, are they safe? Are they pain-free? Are they happy? Are they comfortable? I mean, those are really the key things that we have to focus on. And some of the simplest things we haven't paid attention to are the most powerful tools that we can have. So I love the aromatherapy, using that to, if it's wake somebody up or calm them down, or, even for hunger, all of those things that can be used. Same with music therapy. They can pick up the beat to get somebody more lively. They can slow it down to calm them down. And, we're just used to listening to the music, but not understanding necessarily what it's doing, on an internal basis to our mind and to our body as a whole. So kudos to you guys. Now, you're also doing something called time slips. And I'd love for one of you to explain that a little bit more, of what is time slips and how are you using that with your residents?
Sure, I can talk about time slips. So Time Slips is a program that actually was started by a woman named Ann Basting. She's actually a MacArthur Fellow. And it's a program designed for people who have dementia, and they become the storyteller. And so what we do is we pick a picture, and it can be any picture. And then the group facilitator, and typically we have a group of about 10 to 12 residents. Each of them gets a copy of the picture, and the facilitator begins to ask questions. And there's no wrong answer, and everybody's answer gets incorporated into the story. So it might be a picture of a woman sitting on a park bench holding a guitar, and I might ask the question, where is she? And so various residents across the room might shout out different places that they remember, or it's completely silent, and I might walk over to a resident and show them the picture again and say, where do you think this person is? And so from there, through the questions, we develop a story. And you engage every single person in the room. And sometimes if I might say, what do we think the weather is in this picture? And someone might say windy. I'll say, okay, can we act out what we might feel like if it's windy? And so it engages everybody, not just verbally, but physically. And we've come up with some pretty amazing stories. My goal at some point is to create a book of the stories that we can, give not only to our residents, but their families. Because really, much like Linda was explaining with the Urban Zen, you have some people who are really not verbal any longer and come to this group and participate. It might be a one-word answer, but they participate and they become an author of this story that really becomes a quite beautiful story. Some are very funny, but they're very creative, and it's been a great activity. It lasts about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then at the end, together, we come up with a title. Sometimes we come up with 3 titles, and so the story has 3 titles, and sometimes we just come up with 1 title.
Well, that's neat, and I like the inclusion. I've seen something similar to that with poetry, and it's just fascinating how people. I mean, they love this. They love being part of creating this, and then to hear the story at the end. I have seen some where they've made books, and then they have given those books even as gifts to family. because it's just a nice piece of letting families know, again, everything doesn't have to be real or make sense to be fun and engaging, and to show, oh, this is mom's line, or this is, that stuff's important to people. It's a legacy piece that I think is really, really nice for them to be able to have, even if it's a PDF that goes out to families and is able to, depending on HIPAA and if everyone approves, but to even just have their pictures taken with that group of this is what they created is a pretty cool thing. Or I've seen others where they've done it as artwork. So they'll have a picture of the picture, they'll have a picture of the group, and then they'll have printed out what it is in a frame. And, that's some of the artwork throughout the community. And again, it's a nice piece that shows, we're not doing this just to keep people busy,
right?
But, there's really an outcome. There's a connectiveness with that. And I think that is something we can't teach people enough of, that this really matters, to people. So neat. Linda, did you want to add anything on the time slips?
No, that was really Jessica's project that she took on and really implemented. But I just to echo what you're saying, I think it goes back to everything is about, not only caring for people, but making sure that they do feel they have purpose and that they do have creative outlet and they do have the ability to have human connections. And, that goes, making sure that weight and vital signs and everything else are good is a part of it, but these are the things that really feed the soul, and that's, I think, really give people a quality of life.
Yep. Yeah, and we don't have those conversations about what brings quality of life. What is that? I don't know if you've done that ever with even the caregiver groups or with people with early onset dementia, but the conversations are fascinating, and they get very specific of what's important to them. And I think it helps others go, oh, I didn't think that mattered, because it doesn't matter to me doesn't mean it doesn't matter to you. And so just getting to that root of engagement, of even being kind enough to ask, how do I want to be cared for, is really, really very, very important. And to have a team look at that and take that seriously is really something to see in action for sure. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for the time and the ideas that you've given all of us in terms of how to care better. Again, I love the idea of the Dementia Task Force, how it is so inclusive for all levels of your employees and volunteers and family members and so forth, to really get into what is going to be good for this person, and what is going to be good for our culture, what's going to cause us to care better and deeply and feel purposeful doing it. So it's not just a task. I think that can get disheartening sometimes when you have a job that doesn't make you feel you're just doing it to get paid. But when you have that benefit of seeing what you've done and how that has brought joy to somebody, I mean, that's priceless. That's just one of those things that stays with people forever, in terms of making a difference. So people can go ahead and reach out to Linda or Jessica. And what contact information would you like to give people, Linda, for yourself?
My email address, which is Linda Healy, HEALY, at MPTF.com.
Okay, great. And Jessica Coy, who is not spelt like Coy at all, why don't you go ahead and give out your email address as well?
Sure, it's Jessica, JESSICA .Coy, CAUGHEY at MPTF.com.
Wonderful. And people can just go to the website, which would be mtpf.com, to learn more about your organization. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys are a nonprofit as well and can take donations if people want to contribute. Is that correct?
We are a nonprofit, yes.
Okay. So yeah, nonprofits are getting hit hard with this COVID. So if anyone's got a little extra jingle and wants to put it to good use, go to mptf.com and push that donate button. Thank you guys so much for sharing during the holidays. I think you've given people a lot of great ideas on how to care better. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lori.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.